This is an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File Program with Peter Anthony Holder.
As many listeners to the old radio show know, in addition to being a radio host and television host and news anchor, I have also worked for about 20 years for Just for Laughs, the annual comedy festival that takes place here in Montreal. I've done many duties over the years, from producing and hosting shows, running venues, and also being the backstage voice for the festival both here in Montreal and as a recorded voice for their road shows in Chicago, Toronto, and the rest of the world. It's always a treat to work with the comedic talent that comes to town annually. Now this year, one young lady is the only female on the bill for the Nasty Show. Her name is Tiffany Haddish, and she hails from the mean streets of South Central L.A. She's a very funny lady and a very beautiful woman, if I don't say so myself. Now, between shows, I had a chance to talk to her just outside Club Soda here in Montreal, one of the many Just for Laughs venues and the home of The Nasty Show. Here is that conversation now. There are quite a few women, of course, who do stand-up, but if you don't mind my saying, they're not as good looking as you are. You know, I'm not to say that they're ugly stand-up women, but you know, there's something about some women in stand-up, they're not usually as attractive as you are.
True. This is true. And it's funny because I just started realizing that I was attractive maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, because I was always that funny-looking weird kid in the corner that was getting made fun of. So when you say that, that makes me feel good inside, and I receive that and appreciate it with all gratitude and conceitedness. Thank you.
Now, you actually grew up in California, and if I'm not mistaken, you grew up in foster care?
Yeah, I was in the foster care program, Department of Children's Services. Mr. Foster's my father. That's Uncle Sam, I guess. And I grew up in that. My mother was schizophrenic, and she was a little abusive. So we ended up being removed from her and placed in homes, and then eventually my grandma got custody of us, and we were, you know, a family, I guess.
So who discovered the funny in you?
My social worker discovered the funny in me. I mean, everybody always used to say, "Oh, Tiffany, you funny," and I would do a lot of things to try to get attention, and I would get in a lot of trouble trying to get attention, and in the course of making people laugh. And my social worker was like, "Oh, you think you funny? Oh, you think you somebody, girl? Well, I got something for you. You know what? This summer you got 2 choices. You can either go to psychiatric therapy, or you can go to Laugh Factory Comedy Camp." And I was like, "I'll take the comedy camp," and it molded me into who I am today.
One of the things a comic always has to do is find their voice. Now, you've been doing this for a little while. How did you go about finding your voice?
By just talking a lot and figuring out what works for me and what didn't work. And, you know, it's a lot of different things that work for me because, like you said, I'm pretty, so I can get away with a lot. So, and I like to be bad. So, yeah, nasty.
Well, getting to the double standard of men and women in comedy, you like to be bad, you say, and some people are put off by that. Some people in the business are put off by that. Mm-hmm. Did you have a difficult time starting when you said, you know, this is who I am, this is what I do, don't try and change my comedy?
Yeah, I did. I still have a hard time with it, and but the funny thing about it is, if you ask me to do an all clean show, it's very easy for me. Very easy. If you ask me to do a religious show, that's easy. If you ask me to do a show just for, you know, blind people, I can do that too. That's just still talking. Anyway, I could do anything. And it's very hard because people think, oh, you know, you're this and that's what you are. But I'm really a variety of things. So
many comics these days get into comedy and they have an ulterior motive, that motive being working their way perhaps maybe into acting, sitcoms, movies. What is your career path or career goal, or do you just like doing the stand-up?
I really love doing the stand-up. My agent's motive is to get me into TV and movies, and that's what my agent and my manager would love, because then they would make more money, obviously. I love the comedy, and originally I took it seriously to do as like a job, so that I could make my father proud. So when he eventually saw me, he could be like, wow, my daughter is a successful black woman and she doesn't have a bunch of kids and she's actually taking care of herself. Now that I know my father and he doesn't really care, he doesn't give a damn if I do comedy or not. Now I'm just doing it because I have to do it. It's my therapy.
Well, explain that a little bit. You say you were in foster care. You mentioned your dad, and I know that you didn't know who your dad was for a long period of time, or you didn't know where he was.
Yeah,
so did you got into comedy before you
were reacquainted with your dad?
Yeah, I got into comedy when I was like 16, and I kept doing it till I was 18, and I stopped because I ended up being homeless because Granny put me out because she wasn't getting paid for me, and so I had to figure out something to do that was going to make some real money. So I worked at the airlines for a while, and then then I started getting sick and depressed, and I ended up in a psychiatric therapist with a therapist, and she was like, do what makes you happy, and comedy made me happy. And I thought, if I do this good enough, my dad will see me and he'll be proud of me. He'll see me on TV and he'll be proud. And he says he's proud, but he doesn't care what the hell I do. He's just happy that I'm a beautiful young woman that's not, running around in the streets like a crackhead.
Now, you also work with kids and do some work in that relationship based on your own background as well. Tell us some of the things you do with kids.
Yeah, I go to high schools and I put on comedy shows at schools where there's like at-risk youth, where they're like, fighting if there's a riot or something. I do a show called Chuckles, Not Knuckles, because you can solve most everything through laughing. I mean, and most of the time the things that you get mad at, you'll be laughing at it later on. So I do that. Also, I do shows with Department of Children's Services, do their Christmas parties and things like that. I do youth mentoring programs at a place called Home Youth Center, and mentor the kids and give them, guidance and share my story with them and let them know, just because you're in this rut, just because you feel this way now, doesn't mean you're going to feel like that 5 years from now, and you can do better and just work towards the best and you're happy.
And they probably respond to you because you know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, I know what I'm talking about. I've been there. I can sit up there and talk to them for hours about anything they want to talk about because I've been there. I've done that. I've been abused. I've been all of that. Everything that's messed up has happened. Everything. I'm not gonna cry.
Okay, well let's talk about some of the good things that you've done. Let's talk a little bit about the acting. You have done some acting. You've been on shows like what is it? That's So Raven. My Name Is Earl. Other shows like that. What has that experience been for you, as opposed to doing your own stand-up, doing somebody else's lines?
Yeah, saying someone else's words is cool. I mean, it was a great experience. I learned different ways of funny doing it. And they've all been great experiences. I mean, I did a movie with Ice Cube and Mike Epps called Janky Promoters, and that was really fun working with Mike Epps and really fun working with Marcus Rayboy, the director, because he just let me be me, but he gave me a core to work from, and it just let me be myself, and that was great experience, man. It was so much fun doing that movie, and Meet the Spartans, working in that was a lot of fun because they gave me what they wanted, and then they let me twist it and do what I wanted with it, which was great. So I love when I get to do that. And I mean, I worked in a Lifetime movie too as a drug addict, and it was a drama, and they made me stick to the script. And I love that too because then that gave me structure,
Well, how does the discipline and the structure of being an actress, either comedy or drama, how does that help your stand-up and your writing?
Well, yeah, that structure and discipline from acting helps the stand-up so much because it teaches me timing. It teaches me patience. Sometimes you just want to hurry up and tell the joke. Oh, I wrote this joke yesterday, and I want you guys to hear it. I'm like, and then everybody's like, what the hell was she just saying? So you have to sometimes hey, I'm just taking my time on act this out. I'm gonna do what I learned in class yesterday in my acting class. Do what I learned on the set, and usually it makes the joke so much better because you're able to deliver not just a funny joke, but maybe a funny story. You're able to paint a picture better.
Well, we have just about a minute, and there's so many things I'd like to talk to you about, but in the time we have left, can you tell us a story of how you met your husband?
Well, that's going to take more than a minute. But basically, I was on my way to a cruise on this plane, and I got on the plane in Atlanta, and my husband was already on the plane. I didn't see him, but he saw me, and he says that he was like, wow, she's so beautiful, and she has so much self-esteem and confidence. She must be a flight attendant or something. But I wasn't at the time. I was just a customer service agent. But I sat down on the plane, and I got off the plane and was at the baggage carousel waiting for my bag, and he was waiting for his bags, and he sees his bags. He gets his bag. He sees that I haven't gotten my bag, so he puts his bag back on the carousel and comes back and stands next to me and starts talking to me. And we talk until I get my bag, and he's like, where are you going? What are you doing out here in Miami? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, I'm going on this cruise. Oh, what cruise are you going on? Oh, I'm going on a Carnival cruise. Oh, me too. I'm going on a cruise too. And everywhere I was on that boat, man, he was following me around. And it was so funny because I was on the boat with my auntie and my ex-boyfriend. Now he's my ex-boyfriend, but he was my boyfriend. And, you know, he was following me around the boat, and my boyfriend's like, who's this guy following you? And blah, blah, blah. Like, they almost got in a fight because I had invited my husband now. I invited him to the talent show. I said, I'm going to be in this talent show. You should come and check it out. I'm going to be singing James Brown's Sex Machine, so I want you to throw your boxers at me. He said, oh, yeah, I'm going to throw something at you. And during the show, I'm performing, and my boyfriend comes up to the stage and puts a jacket around my shoulders like I'm James Brown, and my husband comes up and throws his room key at me, like hands me his room key. And then my boyfriend pushes him out the way. Hey, man, no, that's my woman. What you doing, you know? And I was like, calm down. I'm bringing down the level, you know, trying to separate them. And then it was cool. And after that, we exchanged numbers. He told me he was a police officer, and I'm like, wow, that's great. You know, so it's good to have a police officer friend. And so we exchanged numbers. We talked on the phone for about a year or so, and then I moved, and I changed my number, and I didn't bother to tell him. And he was trying to find me, but he couldn't find me because he didn't know how to spell my name right. He was spelling it H-A-T-T instead of H-A-D-D. And then he had broke up with his girlfriend years later. This is like maybe 7 years later. He broke up with his girlfriend, and he's laying in the bed, and he's like flipping through the channels, and he sees me on TV. He sees me, and I come out, and I'm like, hey, it's me. Oh, I feel so pretty. I got all this makeup on. I feel like I'm on a swan or something. I'm going to get me a husband tonight. And he was like, yes, you are. You are going to get you a husband. And he saw how to spell my name correctly off that show and went and, you know, typed it in the computer, but all he could find was my P.O. box. So then he calls his buddies that work at the cell phone companies. It's like, hey, do you know a Tiffany Haddish? Do you know a Tiffany Haddish? And they found my number, and he called me, and I remembered who he was immediately. And I was like, dang, how did you find me? And he tells me how he found me. And then, you know, I'm like, well, if you could find me, maybe you could find my daddy. And he was like, oh, I could find your daddy, but it's going to cost you. And I'm like, I'll pay you whatever you want. And so I'm thinking I'm going to just do it to him. But no, he's like, yeah, I want you to marry me. And I started laughing like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll marry you, whatever. Because I know you ain't going to find my daddy because I ain't been able to find him since I was 16. And 3 weeks later, my dad calls me, and I'm like, oh, my goodness, I can't honor this. I'm not going to honor this. And, you know, we start talking on the phone like every day. I'll go to New Orleans to shoot this movie. He drives out to New Orleans like 3 weekends in a row. He's a perfect gentleman. I start thinking he might be gay, you know, because he's not trying to get none. And then he flies me to his house in Savannah. I see how beautiful his house is, and I'm like, that's it, I'm taking him down. You know what I'm saying? You ain't going to be able to get away this time. And then from that moment on, I knew that, oh, this is going to be my husband right here. And he took me to see my dad, and everything was wonderful. He's a wonderful man. I love him.
So even though it starts off with a little bit of stalking, you ended up marrying the guy.
Yeah, I ended up marrying the guy. See, it's funny because before he even called me, I was like, I broke up with this other guy I was dating, and I prayed to God that the next guy that's comes in my life, make him be somebody who wants to love me and care about me and wants to marry me. You know, don't just be messing with me just because I'm cute. Be messing with me because you have the intentions of spending the rest of your life with me. And that's exactly what God sent me. Exactly.
Well, congratulations on your life. Congratulations on your career. And thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. This is beautiful.
That's our chat backstage with comic Tiffany Haddish, who was part of the Nasty Show at Montreal's Just for Laughs Festival. You can learn more about the festival by going to their website at hahaha.com. You can learn more about Tiffany by going to her website at tiffnicity.com. And you can go to my website, which is thestufffile.com. Stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H. Just go to the What's On page for this show, which is show number 0047, and you'll find links to both of those sites that I just mentioned. That would be Just for Laughs and also Tiffany Haddish's site.
You've just heard an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File Program with Peter Anthony Holder. To hear any or all of the full hour-long shows, visit thestufffile.com. Stuff is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's thestufffile.com. A presentation of Flying Fish Communications.